As a physical therapist, I often get asked, what are the most important stretches that I need to do every single day? And largely the answer to that does vary from person to person. But if you had to nail me down to the three most important stretches for people over 60, there are three that are probably more beneficial than all the rest. And the reason for that is that they address multiple different problems with the same stretch. In this video, I'll share what those three stretches are, and we'll get started with the first one right now. The first one is a standing hip flexor stretch. And the reason this one is important is that it stretches both your hip flexors and your calves at the same time. It's also very functional because it simulates the motion that you go into when walking. To do this, you're going to take a step forward with one leg and have the other leg behind. The back leg will be the one that you're stretching. Now, you don't want to cause excessive back arch when doing this, so make sure to roll your pelvis under. This keeps your spine in more of a neutral position and doesn't jam the joints together in the lower back. So roll the pelvis underneath. Then to stretch both the hip flexors and the calves, keep your heel on the floor and squeeze your glutes to drive your hip forward. You should feel a stretch in both the front of the hip as well as the back of the calf. Now, if one stops you before the other, it is okay to break it up into two different stretches, to just stretch your hip flexor by lifting the heel, or just stretch the calf by not stretching the hip flexor as much and keeping the heel on the floor. But if you do the angles just right, roll underneath, keep the heel on the floor, and push the hips forward, squeezing the glutes there, you get a nice stretch on the hip flexor and the calf at the same time, and that way you get two benefits out of each stretch. For all of the stretches in this video, I'd advise holding for at least 1 minute and preferably 2 minutes if you can. That means it should be a comfortable stretch, not something that you feel like you're really straining to hold. So hold this stretch for a minute or two and then move on to the second exercise. The second one will be actually kind of just the opposite of this. If you notice, you're in hip extension here, your leg is going behind you, and ankle dorsiflexion here, your knee is coming forward over your toe. The next one's going to be basically the opposite motions, and that one's going to be a child's pose. To do this, you can either do it on the ground, or if you can't get on and off the ground easily, you can do this on a bed and it works just as well. However, if you can get on and off the ground, I would advise doing so, because part of the benefit of doing the stretch is just maintaining the ability to get on and off the floor. If you have sore knees, put a cushion or a pillow underneath your knees, and that'll help out with the knee pain kneeling on the floor. So to do this, you're going to have your hips in flexion, just the opposite. Your knees in flexion, so your knees were straight in the past stretch, and in this one they're bent. And then the ankles in plantar flexion, meaning your toes are down like this. So this is basically just the opposite of the movements that you were doing before. Now you're going to put your lower back down like this and stretch your arms out forward. So another benefit of this is that it stretches your lower back and also stretches your upper back as well as your lats. Now there are a lot of different variations of this child's pose stretch that you can do. If you keep your spine in relatively more of a neutral position and sit back like this, you can feel it in the back of your hips, and you may even feel a pinching in the front. What you're trying to stretch is the back part of the hips, but if your hips are tight, you may feel a limitation up front, and when you hit that limitation, that's where you want to stop. This is really helpful if you have stiff muscles in the back part of your hips, and this forces the motion through your hips rather than allowing you to compensate by rounding your lower back out. So this is one variation where you sit back with your lower back straight and forcing the motion through your hips. You can also round out your lower back and stretch your lower back. This is particularly good for people who have spinal stenosis or other lower back problems where they're sensitive to having arch in their back. This often feels really good if you have lower back problems. If you need to get down a little farther, you can kind of splay your knees out to the side, and that'll allow you to get even farther into lower back flexion or lumbar flexion. You can put your elbows down on the floor, and that allows you to get down farther. You can also make it more of an upper back stretch by turning your palms up this way. This stretches your lats and your upper back more. So now you should feel this kind of in this area right here, as well as between your shoulder blades. And again, hold each of these poses for 1 minute or more. Then the next exercise is going to be for your upper body. A lot of people from working at computers or being on smartphones get really tight in their chest muscles as well as rounded in the upper back. And so this last exercise will be up against the wall like this. You want to try to flatten your lower back up against the wall. Your shoulders and upper back may or may not touch, and that's okay. Then bring your arms up like a goalpost. This stretches out the front of your chest and shoulders. And then bring your arms back like this, trying to bring the shoulders and arms back towards the wall. But it's very important that you keep the lower back flat, even if your shoulders and upper back don't touch completely. And then once you get in this position, again, try to hold it for a minute if you can. If you can't do that, take a break after 15 or 30 seconds and repeat, but get at least a minute of total stretch time. And again, this stretches out your chest, upper back. It actually even kind of keeps your lower back in more of a neutral position. So again, a lot of benefits to all of these 3 exercises. So those were the 3 stretching exercises to do every single day. But what about strengthening exercises? If you had to nail me down to the #1 best strengthening exercise for seniors, that would absolutely be a squat. And you can learn techniques to squat at any age without knee pain in this video over here. But before you go, if you found this one helpful, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you can get notified of our future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.